What is going on, traders? So we're going to get straight into it. I'm not going to drag this video. I just want to point out something very interesting that's happening across the board. And that's interesting thing is with semiconductors. And I don't know if anyone's noticed, but we're seeing semiconductors take turns in regards to breaking out. We saw AVGO breakout, we saw AMD breakout after, then we saw, SMCI, a little mixture of SMCI and MU breakout all together. And we're seeing across the board with semiconductors that they're just taking turns breaking out. And so, what am I getting at here? I think this is showing a sign that we are nearing a top. And the reason why I say that is because if semiconductors break out all at once, then I think that's obviously going to cause a huge upside in the market, right? If we just see semiconductors, even the semiconductor ETFs all take off, then that's going to cause a huge move within the market and probably a bigger move than expected. And so I think this is going to be a very slow upside. Obviously, unless we get some news or whatever the case may be, there's going to be a slow burn to the upside unless semiconductors all take off at once, mainly Nvidia, because we're seeing Nvidia pretty much lag behind. And so I'm going to go over at least a good portion of the semiconductors. I'm not going to go over all of them, but a good portion that I'm interested in right now. So first we're looking at MU. And so I said in the Discord that if MU gets above $94 and actually hold, then we're going to see a move to 102. It's also important to note that MU has earnings Wednesday at close. And so right now, MU has broken above this channel. We're on a daily time frame. It's broken above this channel. And as you guys can see, throughout the day, we've had a hard time holding above the 94 level. And so if we zoom in, we see that we are currently trying to break above this fair value gap range, right? And what do I tell you guys? I tell you guys that if you break above a fair value gap, then it is a sign of a breakout happening, or more likely a sign of a breakout happening. And then we'll see a move towards $100, which would be our psych level, but I'm counting on 102 being the next big move. And so either that happens prior to earnings or during earnings, but I am pretty bullish in regards to MU. Do what you want with this information. And so we look at a stock like Nvidia. All right, so Nvidia, we go down to the 4-hour time frame, and it's really taking its time here, right? But you have somewhat of a head and shoulders pattern, or you can call this a cup and handle. I don't think either one is wrong, depending on how you look at things. So if we wanted to, consider this a head and shoulders pattern, we could say this is a shoulder here. We could say this is a head here, and then we could say this is another shoulder right here. And if you want to call it a cup and handle pattern, you're not exactly wrong either, right? You can see that we have our handle right here, and then we have our cup right here. And so we've already broken the trend. It's just a matter of when NVIDIA is going to move. And so maybe NVIDIA moves based off MU earnings or some other news that may come out the sky. Who knows? But right now, Nvidia is really taking its time in regards to breaking out, and we're kind of seeing a reflection of that across the market, right? We saw Apple break out, and it seems like the market was really motivated to move when we saw Apple breaking out, but Nvidia was not really moving. And so, if Apple is cooling down, which we're witnessing now, does that mean that Nvidia is up next to break out? So something very interesting to think about. And right now, Nvidia is just pretty much hugging this channel right here or this trend right here, and we'll have to see what happens. But as long as Nvidia stays above 115, I think it's pretty much fine. If it does break below 115, I'll say it just is heading back to 113, and then we'll see what happens from there. But I still think Nvidia is going to see that 123 target. It's just a matter of when. I wouldn't be surprised it happens this week, no later than next week. We either see 123 or 126, but right now, pretty bullish on Nvidia. I just don't see any reason to be bearish on it. Right now, it's just taking its precious time. And so we look at a stock like SMCI. And so we saw a glimmer of SMCI trying to break out. Well, it did pretty much break out. And congratulations to all the Discord members who took this trade. We made a really huge bag off of this, as you guys can see. I made about $3,425 off this play, 274%. As you guys can see here, we exited 275%. So very, very good play. We did 500 calls at around the 450 level, and it ran all the way to about 480 today. I definitely think SMCI is going to head higher. But congratulations to Discord members who did take that play. That was an absolute killing. Um, honestly, I can be done for the week and just look forward to next week, but got a job to do. So In regards to SMCI, if SMCI breaks above, I would say 484, then this thing is going to go absolutely parabolic. It's already pretty much been going parabolic, but my target on SMCI is about 530, 550. And again, I don't know what's going to cause this move to happen. Maybe it's MU earnings, maybe it's some other news, maybe Nvidia news or whatever SMCI gets motivated by. Maybe it's its own news, right? But still bullish on SMCI. I think it's going to see a lot more upside and within the $500 range by sometime this week. I do think that's very much possible. And so we notice here that there's a gap that needs to be filled all the way at about 517, we'll say 515, 517 range. And then there's a fair value gap that needs to be mitigated at around the 510 range. And then you have another one all the way within pretty much at the 600 level. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen this week. We've seen that pretty much being possible with SMCI. It pretty much moves. When it moves really, really big, right? And so that is very much possible. But right now, I'm looking at about 530, 550 range for SMCI. So pretty bullish on SMCI. A move that I would look for is a break above that 584, 585 psych level if you really want to be safe. And then I think there's very much more potential for SMCI to break higher. Again, congratulations to Discord members. We absolutely killed this play. It was absolutely amazing day in regards to this play. Otherwise, the day was pretty much boring in regards to either upside or downside, right? And so SMCI. We saw a glimmer of light from SMCI where it broke out, and then we're seeing the same thing with MU. And so, again, I'm getting to the point here where we're seeing semiconductors take turns. So, what is going to happen when NVIDIA finally makes its move, which will be very interesting? And I think the market will react very well, obviously, to NVIDIA making its move. But then you look at stocks like SOXX, right? Or ETFs like SOXX. I think SOXX is going to head to 235 probably this week or whenever Nvidia decides to make its move because Nvidia is like the second holding for SOXX, I believe. And then I believe SMH has the number one holding in shares in regards to Nvidia. But SOXX is in a very interesting spot where we see a low here, a higher low here, and then we pretty much broke our trend here. Let's actually map it out real quick. We broke trend here, right? And then we bounced off the trend. Hopefully you guys can see this. Let me actually color code this a little bit better so you guys can actually see, right? But this trend here, we broke trend here on SOXX, and we added to our positions in regards to long-term investments, by the way. But in regards to SOSX, you see we broke out and then we retested. There's a wick right here retesting the trend. It's pretty hard to see, I imagine, for viewers on YouTube. But regardless, we bounced, and right now we're pretty much just stagnant in this area. But I do think that SOXX is going to break out higher, and that's obviously going to be based on probably MU earnings and Nvidia whenever they decide to move. And I do think they're going to move. It's just a matter of when. And so 235 is my target, right? 235 will be right in pretty much in the middle of this fair value gap. Can it go higher? Absolutely. But right now we're going to play the humble game and see what happens, right? And so you look at another ETF like SMH. And so SMH is pretty much making the move that I expect. But again, you're seeing the same exact thing where you pretty much broke trend, right? And then you see a simple retest. This is not going to be perfect because I'm kind of like rushing through it, right? But you see you broke and you pretty much retested, you mounted, and then you gapped up, and now you're just pretty much stagnant in the middle of Narnia, right? But I think SMH is going to continue to head higher, and my target for SMH is about 250. And so, again, we're just seeing a lot of these semiconductors pretty much take turns. And what's very interesting is that although we see like SMCI breaking out and we see MU breaking out, we see AMD breaking out, SOXX and SMH barely are moving or reacting to those breakout moves. So that only tells me that they're obviously waiting on NVIDIA. All right. Or maybe they're waiting on MU earnings. I don't know for sure, but we saw MU go all the way from $90 to like $94 today, and we barely got a reaction from SOXX or SMH. We saw the same thing with AMD, and we barely got a reaction from either one. And so that just goes to show that how powerful Nvidia is, and as long as Nvidia is dropping or even like consolidating, we're constantly seeing that reflect across the ETFs as well. So very, very interesting to think about. And so this leads me to believe again that the upside is limited. And when I say limited, I do believe that the SPY is going to see 580. I do think that's going to happen sometime this week, early next week. I think the triple Qs is going to see about 496, 498 range. That can happen again this week or next week. But when we look at the SPY, and I guess that's not really limited upside, but it just shows that when Nvidia does take off, it's going to be one fell swoop. Okay, I think the upside that we're going to see, or the massive move that we're going to see, is going to be like one fell swoop. It's going to happen very fast, and that's going to be it. Okay, and then whatever happens after that is going to happen. But we look at the SPY. You guys know where I'm going with this. We've already seen this multiple times, but for those of you who are new to the channel, looking at a descending triangle on the daily time frame. And so we have a low here, higher low here. We broke out. We're pretty much consolidating. We're not really doing much of anything up here. We're pretty much consolidating, but there's really no reason for me to be bearish right now. We closed above 568. That's pretty bullish, I would say. We get below 568, then there's a chance we're going to see 565. And then I think from 565, well, 565, 564 range was pretty much where this gap fill is. And then possibly we just bounce from there. But regardless, I think we're going to see more upside. I have no reason to think about being bearish right now, at least for the short term. But SPY looks fine. All right. You look at the triple Qs. And so you look at the triple Qs, and there's a lot going on here. So, try to keep up with me here. But you look at the triple Qs and you zoom out, and as you guys can see, we broke back into this rising wedge, which is pretty much a bearish pattern. And what do we say about rolling back into patterns? Chances are you're going to continue in that direction. And since we broke back into this rising wedge, I have no reason to believe that we're going to pretty much break down or pretty much sell off anytime soon. If anything, I would say we're going to go higher. And so the worst case scenario is obviously we do have somewhat of a gap here where we pretty much retest about 478, 476 range, and then we head higher and start mitigating this fair value gap. Not only that, but filling this gap over here at around the 496, 498 range. And so something to look out for. Again, I see no reason to really be bearish right now. Despite what news is coming out or war, whatever the case may be, I just don't see any reason for this to pretty much give up, right? And so we bounce here and then we potentially break higher, or we just continue to go higher, one or the other. But right now, things are still looking great as far as upside in regards to the market. And so we look at a stock like Google. And so Google, we go to the weekly time frame. And so our Discord bot alerted a 165 call for October 18th. So feel free to check that contract out. We also jumped into that play as well, as a collective. But regardless, you see this weekly trend here, this blue line here. You rejected here multiple times. You rejected here. You tried to break out. You broke down. You broke out, and now you're back above this weekly trend. And so, worst case scenario for Google, just a warning here. Worst case scenario is that it simply retests this level right here. This will be our weekly pretty much weekly support at around 159.8, 159.5, and then bounce from there. Okay, so pretty bullish on Google. I think Google is going to see 170. It's just a matter of when. But if we get rid of this, line right here, and we focus on what can happen next, we also have a gap to be filled at around the 160s range. So if Google does break down, then just be prepared for it to head to this level here. And then from there, I think Google is just absolutely going to break out. Google is when Google breaks out is going to be absolutely massive. So yeah, be prepared for that. There's also someone in Discord also pointed out a potential inverse head and shoulders pattern. We say potential until the neckline is broken. I definitely see it. I see the potential for it. It's just a matter of how this area right here turns out. But your neckline would be somewhat like this. So your neckline would be at around, we'll say 165. If Google can get above 165, then this thing is probably going to go parabolic and start really heading to the upside. Plus, you're kind of a liquid in this area, at least to the 170 range. So yeah, when Google breaks out, it's going to move fast. So yeah, worst case scenario, again, you see a move towards 160, we'll say 159, somewhere around 159 before Google actually really breaks out. Okay. So we look at another stock. Let's see. We could look at I meant to look at Meta. Where is Meta? And so I talked about Meta in the last video, and remember I told you guys anytime you break above a fair value gap, that's a sign of a breakout happening, and that's exactly what happened. We broke above this ascending triangle on Meta, and I know it's hard to see, but regardless, there is ascending triangle here. You have a flat top, and then you have a low here, another higher low here. So you have an ascending triangle. It broke out. Not only did it break out of the ascending triangle on a daily time frame, but it broke above this weekly trend. And then it broke above a fair value gap. So yeah, Meta is just going to most likely continue to head higher if the market supports it. But this thing looks, it just looks diabolical. I mean, this thing is moving like a wildfire. So definitely something to pay attention to in regards to Meta. Me, I don't think it's worth taking as a trade, me personally, simply because I don't know. It's just not worth it for me to just break above a weekly trend and continue higher, and it's just pretty much in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, that's just not something I'm interested in regards to Meta. But you do what you want with the information. Maybe you find something that I can't see. And so we look at Bitcoin real quick. So let's look at Bitcoin. And so my thoughts still stand on Bitcoin. As you guys can see, we're pretty much mounting this level here. This is the weekly time frame. It broke above this broadening wedge on the weekly chart. I think Bitcoin is going to head higher still. I'm still bullish on it. 65K, 67K are still my targets. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes higher than that. Probably 70K or something like that. But Bitcoin looks great. Right now, it's just mounting this area. It's pretty boring right now. It's not really doing much, but as you guys can see, it's just pretty much mounting this area. And you see bears are just constantly trying to hold it in place. But it's only a matter of time. I think that Bitcoin is going to break out and go ballistic. And that would lead me to talk about coin. So pretty bullish on coin. I see no reason not to be bullish. I think this thing is going to go berserk, obviously right along with Bitcoin when Bitcoin does decide to break out. It broke above this falling wedge. You have a few fair value gaps that need to be mitigated to the other side. You have one at around 187, 190, and you have another one at around the 200 range. So if I was to pick a target, I would say, 180. You look to take profit at around 180, 185. And then if you want to obviously go higher, and by all means start trimming contracts along the way. I would trade coin. I'm just not finding any good contracts in regards to coin. And so until I start seeing like really good contracts pop up on the options chain, then I will be interested in taking coin. And so if you want access to plays like this and you want to see if I end up playing coin or whatever the case may be, Discord link is in the description below. But that's pretty much all I have for this video. The overall point here is just to really watch semiconductors, and if all the semiconductors like really take off together, or if Nvidia takes off, then I do think that's when the market is going to start really seeing a huge, massive move. Whether MU earnings causes that or not, it's up in the air. We'll see. Pretty bullish on MU earnings. I think they're pretty much going to crush it unless we like go parabolic tomorrow before earnings, tomorrow and Wednesday. Unless we like see 100s prior to the earnings. Otherwise, pretty bullish on it, and we probably would see a good reaction across the board with semiconductors if their earnings does come in good. We'll see. Other than that, that's all I have. Until the next video, traders, you have a good one.